All right, welcome back. We have a great guest on today, Coach Tom Perkovich from Susquehanna University. He went deep into the playoffs this year. He had a fantastic season. He's had a fantastic career as a coach. Just kind of give you a background. I mean, perennially they've been in the top 25. I know the last 4 or 5 seasons they have been. Um, he's he's had so many guys get all conference. It's over 60 guys. It might be 70 now after this year. Over 80 wins in his career, multiple All-American selections. He's been there, I think, since 2015, if I'm not correct, and has really built up Susquehanna into a powerhouse program nationwide. It was always considered a pretty good regional program, but now they're on the map nationally with what Coach has been able to do. So, Coach, it's great to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me and highlighting our program.
Talk a little bit about. So we know about what you've done since you've come to Susquehanna and really built it up there. Talk about kind of your background in playing and coaching and kind of how you arrived there.
Yeah, sure. I'm a native of the Buffalo, New York area. That's where I grew up and went and played my ball at Canisius College in the city of Buffalo when they had football.
Yep.
I tell a lot of recruits, don't do what I did. Don't fall for the we're getting better mantra. Because we never did. I won 4 games in college total. Not a lot of support for our program, but I had the chance to play and walk on to Division I basketball also. So I was a 2-sport guy. The transfer portal wasn't what it is now, right? You had to sit and do those things. So pretty loyal guy. We, thought we got the program better, but, played a couple sports there and then got into college coaching right away. Was at Muhlenberg as a young coach, that intern position type of situation. Coached the running backs for 2 years. We won championships. So got the bug real quick on being a coach at this level. Kind of fell in love with it. Never was my intent. My intent was to get my master's paid for as an education major, through coaching. But I've still never worked at a school that has an education master's until now. Started here. But it's been a heck of a ride. So I was there for 2 years and then got a chance to go to Holy Cross and work for Tom Gilmore there. We had a nice season. One of the first winning seasons they had in a long time at 6-5, and learned a lot about coaching and the preparation and the things. I worked with some great people there, and then had a chance. I went to Colgate. I tell people I went to Colgate for literally a cup of coffee. I was there for 4 months. Was there for a spring and just had a chance to go back to Muhlenberg in a full-time capacity, coach the O-line, which is what I played 3 years of my college career after moving from tight end. And I was kind of back in the running back mode at Colgate and just felt like I wanted to really coach the offensive line. And that was something I was passionate about. I didn't know what that path was going to be. So I made that change. Really hard decision back then. And there's always, I think a lot of coaches have those decisions to make at some point, and I made that one to go back and work for Coach Donnelly there, and then spent 9 years there. After that, became the offensive coordinator and did some special teams coordinating, was the O-line coach, had a lot of say in the game planning offensively, but, and then I became the offensive coordinator in 2010 there, all the way to 14. And, we had a lot of success there, won a bunch of championships, really consistent program, and learned a ton about, how to do that there from coach. And, so, and then in 2015, got a chance to, take over a program that was struggling a little bit, but I thought had all the pieces to be good and be elite. People care about football here at Susquehanna, but they had won 3 games in 2 years when we walked in, and, we're struggling a little bit, but we got working and got able to, we're able to turn things around and pretty quickly, and then, we've done some good things over our 9 seasons and 10 years here. So it's been fun for sure.
It's a place that actually I knew about it a little bit when I was going back to when I was in high school, because there was a guy who played quarterback there that was from my high school, Jimmy Wissey. many years, a long time ago. And it was one of those places, like you said, that kind of was like a diamond in the rough, like waiting to be revived, which you have more than done so. And talk about from when you took over, what kind of the pieces you had to put in place to really set the stage to where you guys are now.
Well, I think there was a really good infrastructure here. There was good. We had some really good players. A couple Division like one transfer kids that were here at the time, and but I think it just it just needed a kind of a refresh. And even the previous coach who I'm friends with would tell you that. He said that, and but we just got working. Worked hard at it. Tried to put together a great staff, diverse staff. And really just go out and beat the bushes to death in recruiting. And find guys that fit what we were looking for, which is, Susquehanna is a great school. So you want guys that want a great education, but one thing we've never wavered on is we want guys that have a burning desire to play college football. If guys are looking at big schools just to be there, I tell them, don't come here. This isn't for you. This is not your spot. So, we got work in there, but put together a really nice staff, was able to get more guys, even young guys in the office and make it work for them every day, and be there for our players and recruit well and work hard. The guys that it was a culture change for them on the level of work and the things we were expecting from them on a daily basis. And we try to stay consistent, and just work really hard at doing that and getting the right people and outworking people on a daily basis. And the administration, was able to see the vision that I had, and the things I was asking for were reasonable. I wasn't trying to shoot for the moon too much, keep it
smart,
a place
smart.
Like this. And so, we got that. And then, we had some different changes and coordinators after our second year, even though, we'd gone 5-5, we'd gone 6-4. And then, when Pat Ruley came here as our DC, he and I had worked together previously. And I felt like, just that gel of that and, the gel with the rest of the staff was really, really strong. And we had some really good people and we're able to keep some people around. Like, Alan Zamitis was here, who played at Penn State. For those that are Penn State fans, he's now, a big part of that defense they put together at Penn State. He's the defensive, recruiting guy at Penn State, his alma mater, and has done an awesome job there. But he was an excellent, recruiter, excellent coach. Like, he just had good people, we've always tried to make it about the people here and how, people that want to work hard aren't afraid of the work, right? They want to put time and effort.
No, they embrace it.
Yeah, they embrace it. They understand it. And they saw, our guys and players and coaches got to see the value of it, right? We went from 5-5 to 6-4 to 8-3 and won a bowl game, and then won another bowl game. And, and people were starting to see that. The kids were seeing how we've kind of gotten better every year. And, but man, there were some really long hours, really turning over every stone, being super detailed and organized that we, when we got here. And, once the kids saw that, those things led to winning, it kind of became contagious. It kind of, ran it. I don't want to say run itself because it never does that, but, it really became contagious and just has kind of set us off on the right, trajectory to continue things. But, we don't take anything for granted here, to be honest. We understand the target is fully on our chest every year and we want more. And
absolutely.
And those guys understand that, but they understand the guys that came before them that, put the sacrifice and time into getting the program where it is, in the place that it is now. And so it was good, but the people here are great. I talked about my college experience, and the lack of support. Like it's exact opposite here. Like the alumni, the administration, the people on campus, like they support our kids, they support our staff, they support the vision on what we want to do. And that's really, been the backbone of who we are. But, it's not an easy place because you are, off the beaten path and it is a hidden gem. But, I think by working hard and getting people to see what you want to do and see the campus. I mean, our campus is unbelievable. So, we it's here, we got a shot, and we've had the right staff in place to get that done, and continue to evolve, as you have to, in the state of college football and those things. But it's been a crazy ride, but it all starts with the work and the right people.
Yeah, and I think that's really kind of part of it, right, Dave? We talk about it all the time, especially at the level that you're at, right? And the persona that some of these student athletes have of, D3 or this and that. But when you can put together, a solid program and an organization where everything aligns from the top, from the administration, the president, at these quote unquote small hidden gems, right? If that all aligns and then everybody's on the same page, the main thing is just get them there, right? Like, get on campus and see what we really have to offer. And then most times that will, push those guys to, once they see it and they're there and they feel it, because it's all aligned from the top to the bottom, and mom and dad get on board and everybody just sees that vision of where you're going and how it was here. And look, this is how we did it, the process. Once they get on campus, you're usually cooking with gas. I think that's one of the hardest things for Division III is you got to get the kids on campus. And then that's, once they see that, that's, where you can really, make those connections to get them to come there.
Yeah, I think the staff that you originally built, AZ is, I know AZ from back when we had him running a lot of our camps back in the, I might have been around like 2010, 2009, 10, 11, that time period. And right after he was done playing in the league and stuff down in Florida, he was down there. So, I know the kind of intensity that someone like him brings. And obviously now he's over at Penn State where he was alumni and, getting
right. And we've had Ruley on, Dave, right? We've had Pat on,
Ruley,
and he's been a two-timer now, and he's infectious, right? He just brings the juice all the time. So I can only imagine what that, staff meeting room was like, bouncing off the walls. But that's the type of, you want that juice, you want those vibes.
Talk about so it's interesting because the way recruiting has shaped up, like you guys have really, your team has really thrived in the newer era of recruiting, right? You guys were really successful, but now you were, I think, in the semifinals this past year, right? In Division III, quarterfinals a couple of years before that, both the last 2 years before that. It's really been a growth of your program. I'm curious, where do you draw, like, what is kind of the mix of the athletes that you have between high school coming in and transfers, and then where is kind of your base, I guess? Is there? I know you can recruit nationally now, but like, where's kind of your base?
Yeah, we'll say that our base has been Eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware. We'll have a kid from Northern Virginia, which is an area that, we're going to try to continue to grow in. That's newer for us. Maybe go west a little bit more, Western Pennsylvania. New York's a tough cookie.
It is. There's just so many other schools up there, like you're battling that.
Yep. And, New York City, Long Island is a little bit, you're talking 3.5, 4 hours. You're getting a little outside there, even though they go that far to go to some of the schools. But, that's been that region has been really our honey hole. That's been where we've drawn kids from and gotten kids from all different parts of it too. It's not like, this school's a feeder for us or that school, it could be for a year and then 3 or 4 years go by and then we get kid, then down the road.
Right.
But that's really been who we are. We'll get a kid here and there from Florida or New England and that stuff. But, you only have so much staff. You only have so much time at our level, right? So where do you try to put your effort? Is right. People want to recruit all these other places, but is the juice worth the squeeze? So, for us, I think we know where we are. We know who we are. And even as a school, right? As you look at our student body, right. There's some kids from all these other places, but most of them are from that area that I just said. And, we've tried to hit those high schools really hard, those areas really hard to find the kids that fit for us, and academically and athletically, obviously, and in that part of it. Now, most of our guys, I will say, are high school kids that we developed. We do I think our development program here is one of the best things we do, and that's how we've stayed on top. I think in college, right, you guys graduate, guys go. So right. How do you stay? You got to develop. You got to develop your roster on a daily basis, not just the guys that are playing on Saturdays for you. I think, some guys miss that. They do too much with the starters. I learned that lesson as a young coach a long time ago, that you better be taking care of everyone, right? And you better be developing everyone. And I think we have a really good plan for that. We do have some transfers. I mean, the two guys that were players of the year in our conference this year were both transfers, right? With Josh at quarterback, Josh Ehrlich at quarterback was a Marist transfer. And then, Garrett Carter was a Bryant transfer. Now they're guys that we had talked to in high school, though, so it wasn't, we had talked to a little bit. Garrett's uncle and I worked together for 11 years. So like there was a little bit different, it's a little different than just a cold call transfer kid. We've had a couple corners and some different guys that have been transfers, but I can't say we're taking 20 of those guys a year or 15. We're taking a couple. A couple years ago, I think we had 5 or 6. That was the most we've had. The last couple of years, I think we had 1 or 2. So it's not the easiest place sometimes. Just finding the academics, got to fit right. The mid-year guy's a little tough time-wise with us, with when school starts, getting all those pieces done. I think with our success going forward, hopefully the summer could be a better area for us, with some transfers. But we want to make sure they're the right fit. We want to make sure that they, they're going to fit in there, and they're a position that we need too. I don't want to just bring a guy in here to bring a guy in here, right? When there's, a guy who is going to be really, really difficult to beat out. I want to at least, make sure that those guys have a shot to play, because I don't need cultural issues there.
Right.
And guys being upset. The one thing we won't do here is we won't take a double transfer. So a guy that's on his third stop, we won't do that here. That's a philosophical thing for me, unless there's something story-wise or something about getting back close to home or something that, we would know, but that really hasn't been. I worry about that. So we've really built it up by development and high school players for the most part. There's been some pieces where have fit guys in at the right time. That's really how we've handled, our recruiting and those things. The national part, I still got to figure out,
right.
How that looks and the timing of it and how much time goes into that,
right.
and trying to get guys here. I think it's easier said than done. But we'll see where it goes, now that we're kind of on that level.
Dave, I just want to ask one question about that. Yeah. The national recruiting, right? It might, to me, with the way social media is now, I am sure you get messages from kids all over the country, especially now that, your school is out there, right? Like you've been in the playoffs, and look, I'm a D3 player. I understand how hard it is to make those playoffs. And then once you get in it, you're facing the tops of the top across the nation, is what it is. But you travel a little bit when you get in those deeper rounds. So you start to touch on that national thing. I am sure, Coach, that you're getting messages from kids all over the country. Is that what you mean by how do we navigate that? Is that kind of what you're explaining there?
Yeah, for sure. Like, Twitter is sometimes the bane of my existence, to be honest with you. It's just constant, guys following you, guys messaging you. And I probably need to do a better job of how we're handling that.
I don't know how you do it.
I don't have enough time in the day to do that.
Right.
24 hours a day. They're shooting off messages at 3:30 when they're like, this school looks great. Let me message the head coach. I get it.
The part that struggles with is a kid will come on and say, hey, I'm interested in you. And then you're like, well, what do you want to major in? And he's like, well, exercise science. And I'm like, well, we don't have that. So,
right.
But I just wasted how much time,
right.
That interaction.
It adds up, right? It all adds up. You answered him.
And it's taken away from the kid in Philly that I really want, I really like, and is probably going to be a higher yield, right? Quotient. So,
correct.
again, it's trying to figure out what that looks like, how that works. I will say going deep in the playoffs is great, but it's also can be a negative from a recruiting standpoint. We found that out this year, right? Like
the timetable, right?
The previous year, the previous couple years we lost in the first round. We were on the road in the normal December time. Well, you play all the way till December 21st. You're not on the road as much. You're not connecting with kids face to face. And a place like ours that no one really knows, at least you guys know it, but the high school kid doesn't know us that much. We're taking kids from zero to commitment, right? And so when you don't have that time and then you're hitting the road in January and now, drumming.
Yeah, you're kind of late to the party.
You're late, but you have a great thing to sell too, right? And as I said, the positive is a lot of the guys that are probably going higher level are gone, or at least in that way, if the interest is real. The guys that don't want to play know that by that time because they've met with 50 other schools.
Right.
So you're kind of getting into some guys, but you also wonder, what guys did I miss out on by doing that? So I think we're going to adjust our schedule to earlier, in the recruiting process. Just so if we, hopefully we get back to where we were, right? That's the goal, get back and take another run. And then, we're further ahead in the recruiting process and that with those guys. And it's not, I don't feel as the head coach, I'm trying to go a million miles an hour and making my wife mad at me. Cause
you know how that works.
I'm on my phone too much and I'm, trying to, do a ton and those things and so there's positives and negatives to it, the positives.
But also, and that too, coach, like with that and the timetable, this isn't like, you're at some Power 4 school where you can send your coaches out on the road while you're preparing for a bowl game. You know what I mean? Like the level of the staffing becomes an issue in terms of like, no, I need my coaches here to coach us to try and win this playoff game and keep going. But at the same time, I need guys out on the road that are hitting these schools, because high school football is over and this is now that time period to get in there. So I could totally understand where it becomes, a kind of a double-edged sword, if you want to say, right? Like good with bad, but
Absolutely.
You do have something nice to sell.
Yeah, it's a great sell for sure.
I think you're going to have to dive into a little bit of AI and get a filtering system. Have some smart kid down there at school come in and write a script so it could go through your Twitter and filter in, get the questions that answered that need to be answered, and by the time it comes to you, it's laid up to you on the table, which will help you eventually. I'm sure eventually that's going to be
that'll be a thing anyway.
That will be a thing because there's going to be much like anything that part will evolve because that's going to be a key aspect as you continue to, because the better you get, that's probably like that's the beauty of it, but also the danger of it, right? Is that like you spend time in a kid that you probably you may not actually really have any chance of getting, and he's dragging you along and trying to kind of play you against the place that he may already have, and because you guys have done so well, he now wants to talk to you, but it's not necessarily a fit. So it's an interesting, but it's a good conundrum to have, though. That's a good one, right? You'd rather be fighting for the championships and have that conundrum than not. So, what is the so Susquehanna is a private university, correct? Is it correct? So what is kind of like the makeup of the general population of the university? Is it mostly Pennsylvania kids for the most part, or?
Well, no, it's there's Pennsylvania, New Jersey.
Okay, it is.
Maryland has been really good to us.
Okay,
you get Maryland. We're only 2 hours from Baltimore, right? So
yeah,
it's a 2 hour straight shot all highway to Baltimore. So we get some kids, from
and
the
then
Maryland
Philly
area. Philly, yep. So eastern all of eastern Pennsylvania, from where we are all the way to New Jersey, Jersey border, and then all of New Jersey's been good. And then we'll get kids from New England, New York, here and there, like lower New York, more. And then you'll get kids from Virginia. And as a school, we'll get kids from the West Coast and Midwest, but it's not a lot though. The
Right.
majority of and we're 2,200 students here, so majority of that though is an in-region deal, for us, and that's where we see a lot of applications come from. But I think our people are doing some stuff to try to branch out, and we do get kids from from some different states, but it's a small piece of it, but majority of it is regional.
When you put together a roster, it's interesting because when you're saying how like when you get a transfer, it's like a cornerback or a quarterback or a specific skill spot that you might need help in. Has the transfer portal is that when that opens up, do you guys go in and dive in there and look at players, or do you more a few of these have reached out, or do you maybe population meaning circle region of the area? Do you say, okay, here's people within this 3-hour window? Let's start to take a look. How do you guys kind of approach the transfer portal?
Yeah, so we use a service that filters. It's called Verified. It filters the transfer portal for us, right? Because when you go on the NCAA website, it's the kid's name and where he's transferring from. But this service tells you what high school he went to, was he on scholarship or not? Is he looking to go up? Is he looking to go? If the kid fills out this stuff from them, because they send him an email saying, "Hey, we're here to help you. Try to find your next spot," and we get all that information. So really, for us, you get every kid, but we're really looking for the kids that are again within that region or within conferences that are near us, right? Because we have obviously a ton of football, in this region, right? It's just crazy the amount of schools, and the Midwest schools do great, but they don't have to deal with the PSAC, in recruiting. I guess 16 schools in my state alone, and then the NE10s and those that battle you. So trying to figure out those kids
too, right? Like you got the NJAC and all those guys. And these aren't schools that are just Canisius, sorry, but you know what I mean? You're talking legit tradition football programs.
Yeah.
Does previous relationship play into that at all, Coach? Like if you see a kid maybe that you had, and this is why I tell guys all the time, never burn bridges, right? Or never ghost a coach. Always be upfront with them, because a lot of now, that stuff bounces back. Does that play a role? Maybe a guy that you had recruited coming out of high school, he made a different decision, and now all of a sudden you see that name in the portal, if it's the right fit, of course. But is that something that plays a role?
For sure. I mean, a lot of times we'll already have that kid's information, right? We can send him a text or we have connected on Twitter already, so I think those are the ones that you're looking for sure. But you're also looking for the ones that maybe help positionally too, right? Like the nice part about this too, the service we use is it breaks it positionally. So if we think we need, we're at need in the O-line, or we're at need in the, and like quarterback was one a few years ago. Right. We graduated our all-time leading passer, and Josh was leaving Marist right at that time. So it was
perfect.
Mid-year, he came in the mid-year, and here we go, and so that was timing is obviously part of it.
All-time leading passer was who, Coach?
Michael Roosh was his name. Was a 4-year starter for us.
Nice.
Ended up being 5 years because of COVID, but his brother's on our team now, and had a great career, almost 10,000 yards throwing and over 1,000 passing or total. So just the timing of some of that, or what your needs are, and where maybe you fell short in your class, or you feel like you need a guy to plug, wherever your depth is at certain positions. I think we've tried to go that route instead of being just we're bringing in a bunch of guys, and making we tried to kind of be surgical with it. But that has been huge for us, that service and it sends you emails, and you can, but we try to keep it fairly regional. I think at our level that makes a lot more sense. If we had scholarships, then it'd be different, right? You'd be looking everywhere, at schools or whatever it is. But we try to look at those places. But the previous relationships always help. I think that's always a helpful, and I think it's hard to get transfers, right? It's a hard market. especially when you're in academic school. It's a hard market. It can happen, but you just got to find the right fits and those things. But having something to help you navigate it and get with those guys quickly is critical.
How do you guys structure when you do financial aid for players? How do you guys go about that process?
Mm-hmm. Well, we give really good merit aid here. So the front up money will be, it's the way we do it. It's we have a $79,000 price tag, but your merit is going to be half of that or more off immediately. So it's really not that way, right? So it's just getting people to not get sticker shock. I think that's always the part as a recruiter that's hard. Is parents look at, well, we're never going to afford that. Well, it doesn't cost anyone that, and then the FAFSA stacks on top of that. So we'll have the kid fill the FAFSA out, and then depending on what he qualifies for, he'll get possibly grants, loans, work study, those type of things. Pell, if you're a Pennsylvania kid, you get the state grant, which is hugely helpful from a financial aid standpoint. So it's just a stackable system on top of the merit if you qualify. Some people will, some people won't. Just working people through that process of I say this all the time, you got to do the paperwork.
Yeah.
Don't assume anything at all that it's going to cost you more than you want it to. Now it could, but you'll never know that, right? Because we have some people that go through the process that are unbelievably surprised here. They're uneducated in the process a little bit, or people or whatever.
Everyone.
It's just go, find schools that you think fit you, academically, football wise, what you're looking for, and then go through the process. In the end, if it doesn't work out, then at least right? Both sides. I put myself through college. I get finances are part of it. And I tell everyone that, like, if you say, hey, coach, it's going to be $10,000 cheaper to go to X school.
You get it.
I get it, or it's better fit at this school or that school because of that. I 100% get it. What I don't get is writing this off before you even fill out the application, which is free, and the FAFSA and all those things. So, it's just about, going through the process. But I think we do a great job in financial aid. I think our people understand it. And we actually at Susquehanna, one of the cool things, we're a third of our campus is first generation, which is rare for a school like ours. And and we're in the top 10 in socioeconomic diversity.
Wow.
From a college standpoint. So if any school gets the differences in people, right, it's us. Because of who we're dealing with and who comes here and the type of people from all different types of backgrounds. So, that's one of the things I love about this place. It's a lot like I was as a youngster, going through the process and, but I think it's about going through the process though, and doing that.
And that's something we deal with a lot, in kind of like, what Dave does and what we do. And even myself as a high school football coach is that parents and, they're just so uneducated in the entire process, which is understandable because most people have never gone through it. Even in this day and age, like this could be the first person in that family to ever have the opportunity to go to school, let alone play football at a school. Right. Yep. So, when guys go D3 and they don't see athletic scholarship right away, they want to like turn it off and be like, whatever. Understand that you are going to go there. And when you fill out the proper and work through the proper channels of how to get to this school, it's going to come out to a scholarship. You know what I mean? Like, and I just think a lot of parents get so turned away, coach, like you said, with that sticker price right away. It's like shock value. Oh my God, I'm never going to be able to pay for that. I can't do this. I can't do that. Well, let's go through the process, see what it works out to, and then ultimately make your decision off of that. And it's something we deal with a lot. And it's hard to get parents to understand that there's a process to it. And there is a way, for at least you to see what the true number would be before you do anything. Right. But don't write somebody off right before it.
Yeah. If you're, again, do the paperwork, talk to the coaches, like our top merit scholarship's $44,000. Right. So if you're a wealthy family that's not going to qualify it, and it's, we have We have a lot of great majors here, especially business majors. Like we're a great value, a great bang for your buck on what you're getting, for families. So, for us, but you'd be amazed how many people just go, we can't afford that. It's like, you don't even know what you can afford. You don't even know what it is, but it is what it is. We have to work through it. And it's just a hurdle that we got to cross.
I'm curious if NIL has creeped in at all as you guys are getting successful. Is that something that at all is an issue, or it's a
facial reaction, Dave? We already know.
if we can figure that out, Coach, we'd kill it. I think whoever figures that out.
It's the same thing Pat said.
Yeah,
Coach Rowley said the same thing.
Whoever figures that out first at our level, and the problem, right? Part of the issue here is, and the schools that have to fundraise for scholarships, right? It's the same thing at those levels. As much as we would give the players there, in NIL, you're taking away from like the fundraising to run the program, right? Like, there's only so much money, right? I'd love to say that we'd be able to raise, millions and millions of dollars that would all go here, be great. But I think that'd be naive a little bit. But, it's just like, how much am I taking away from, our fundraising, to help the players, which is great. And the players matter. They're the reason we do this, right? And they're the reason I do it. We want to give them the best experience possible, but it's to be able to do that. I might be cutting my nose off to spite my face if I start going down the NIL train.
Right.
If we can figure out both things, I'm all for it. I'm all for it, and I we've had some conversations because we had the freshman of the year in the country, in our running back, and people are like, well, what? I'm like, we got to maybe figure something out, but we also haven't had anyone go in the portal since our season ended.
That was going to be my next question, Dave. I was going to ask about that.
0 guys go in the portal, including him. So I think guys are having a great experience here right now, and that's what it speaks to. We're doing things the right way, and but I'm open to any discussion on how to figure that out. I'd love to do it. I'd be all for it. But I also don't want it to hurt our ability to give our guys a good experience. Fundraising
makes a lot of sense.
At schools like this. Yeah.
Yeah, I had heard, and I don't know if it's true. I heard that SUNY Cortland was trying to do something in that aspect of raising funds from their alumni for some version of that, but I don't know how true or how detailed.
Well, I think that's where it would have to start, right? Like you'd have to start obviously with your alumni, and Dave, you would know obviously better than any of us, having, doing some of that stuff with UConn and how, that can kind of help a program, at that level. But Coach, you're 100% right. The person that figures this out first is definitely going to have a leg up, because I don't think it's not going anywhere. It's only going to, move forward with it. So the sooner you can get ahead of the curve, I think it would benefit everybody.
Yep.
Well, I could tell you, even at UConn, there's a battle between inside and outside. So it's an ongoing thing. And just because we run a couple of like big alumni shows, basically, actually, I don't know, you may have coached with him when he was at Holy Cross, Steve Cully. I don't know if you know him at all, but he maybe was after. He was with Gilmore maybe 1 year after or something. But yeah, we host shows, and it's like the NIL different areas, which is the inside, which is the TV revenue, and then the outside, which is like the pure NIL like fundraising. That is, I mean, it's wild. You have different parties competing and giving, and then trying to figure out who to give to whom, and how much does the coach have say in that? And, because obviously the coach, knows who he wants to allocate funds to. And then the university on the inside stuff, it's like, okay, do we allocate, does crew get money? Obviously. So, but that's a whole different animal at Division I. I can only imagine what it's like if you're at Ohio State, where you probably have a monster fund on the outside and you have a monster fund on the inside. and everybody's trying to throw money in one direction. So, but it's an interesting thing. I'm sure eventually it'll creep into everywhere in some capacity. But I think your point is really valid because, right, if someone gave I don't know, $10,000, right, to the football program, well, you'd want to be able to use that for the football program to be able to help the football program grow and get more resources or whatever. Because if you don't, if you allocated some of that towards players, you would not have the same funds to be able to do everything for the whole overall team, and that's always obviously the dilemma. I guess my final question is, so you guys have really built a powerhouse program. What do you kind of see as the vision for you to continue to elevate the program, right? Because you're almost at the pinnacle, right? And so you're that last 1% is I'm sure it haunts your days and nights, right? What do I got to do to get to that 1%? And it's one of the things, you're such a competitor, how you've built the program. What do you think are some of the things that you have to continue to do to continue to like keep you guys consistently, obviously at the top level, but trying to get yourself to even more a higher level than you already are?
Right. Well, I think it's, someone said this to me a while ago, right? Going from 20 to 10 is a lot, in the country, from 20th to 10 is a lot easier than going from 10 to 1, right? So, even or 4 to 1, like we're trying to do right now, and how to be consistent is hard, right? It's hard to be consistent. I think we're, one of the stats I tell people is I think we're one of like 5 programs in the country to win 9 or more games the last 5 years, right? So, only out of 240 schools. So like, how do we, I'm always the guy that thinks about the losses more than the wins. I'm always trying to figure out and navigate. So it's a great question. I think for us, we have to evolve in our recruiting. I think I've alluded to it before. I think we're going to probably have to go out earlier, right? We're going to have to probably spread the net a little bit further and navigate the Twitterverse a little bit more than we have probably in some of those things, and finding the right guys and navigating that. I think by adjusting how we've, because we've really recruited the same way, really postseason recruiting on the road, and turn it into visits on our campus, and we yield really well if we get kids on campus. But I think we need to continue to go just change a little bit on how we're doing some of that. More touch points with recruits, more head coach, coordinators, positions, like, on top of the area recruiters, like just having more of a unfortunately longer process,
right?
To match up a little bit closer probably to a Division I process. But I think where we're at, I think that we have to do that. We've been different than a lot of people. A lot of people have gone out the springs. We haven't done that a lot. The offer game, we haven't done that here. We haven't done any of that. So, I don't know if we will. Still hesitant to do that. But, just I think navigating some of the recruiting there will be big, and, to continue to get us where we want to go. But I think, I'm not naive to know that players make you who you are.
Right.
Obviously good coaches.
Joe's coach.
But yep. And so, I think we have to continue to navigate that a bit better. And those things, and then, continue to just be consistent in our approach too. I don't want to, I think sometimes the mistake is, you're trying to do something different, right? And you end up changing everything, instead of like, what's really good for us? What are we doing? I think schematically there's some things we need to improve on and do better, and we'll continue to do a lot of professional development. But for us, I think it's making sure we don't lose sight of who we are and what's gotten us to where we are. So navigating those things a little bit better, I think, will be good. And yeah, portal is part of the recruiting too. So navigating that, I think, figuring that out and being a little more intentional in that area, I think, could be good. But we're not gonna go to 10,000 students. We're not gonna increase our budgets crazy to do this. But I just think navigating some things that we're already doing a little bit better, could help us take that next step.
It's really interesting because it is such a tough question as you start to get towards the top, and which you are, and you're like, well, my foundation is so good here, and I'm like, okay, how do I tweak these little pieces without alienating my foundation, which has gotten me here, right? So it's really a tough dilemma. You're a fantastic coach, so I love the way you'd say, like, you dwell on your few losses that you have, and you're thinking, what could I have done differently here that would have gotten me the win versus the loss? And you're right. The players obviously make a big difference, but one of the nice things of once you get towards the top, the winning begets winning, right? So guys, when they're choosing a Division III school and they're among the better players that could be going to a D3 program, and they go and look it up and they say, okay, it's not hard to Google things, right? You Google it up and you say, okay, what are the top 5 or 10 programs in Division III? And they see that once they see that immediately puts you in the mix. So it's a matter of I'm sure what you said before, getting them on campus, getting them to see everything, and then going from there. And once they see it, I mean, listen, the Susquehanna River and that whole valley over there is just it's like God's country, So it's unbelievable. And it's funny because until people go actually into Pennsylvania and in the depths of Pennsylvania, you don't really know how beautiful it is. And that's definitely one of the advantages you guys have when you get them there on campus. So for me, it's been awesome talking to you. Really, gain a ton of insight. I just love your thought process and how you kind of systematically move through the things that you need to do to be able to build the program, and you've built it over time. Which is the beauty that you've had a lot of success and been able to build it brick by brick, which has really given you a fantastic foundation. So it's really been great having you on, Coach.
I appreciate the time, guys, and highlighting our program and giving me a little time to say a few things about our program, right, and what we do, for those listening. And but it's been awesome for sure.
All right, Coach. Have a fantastic day,
really
and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
That was great. That was great having Coach on there. Fantastic program. And when you look through, like, the the progression too is really, it's mind blowing. 5-5, 6-4, 8-3, 8-3, 10-1. Then there was the COVID year when I guess they didn't play. 9-2, 10-1, 10-1, 12-2. I mean, that's mind blowing.
But it's also, that's why, when you talk about, look, we understand things are changing, right? Like, that's always going to happen. And ultimately, like, we're going to adapt and change with it, but we're not going to skew from, what's got us here. Like, we've been a winning program for a lot of years now. It's been consistent, and consistency is something, that's difficult to navigate today in today's world, with the transfer portal, with the way just D3 football is viewed by most people in general. To stay consistent, winning that amount of games, going that far in the playoffs. I mean, I don't think a lot of Division III coaches are worried about how to navigate recruiting because you've gone so deep in the playoffs, right? Like, right. That is a Susquehanna issue. And I wouldn't even call it an issue. And just that's where the focus is. And he understands, like, the self-awareness of what our program is and the makeup of it is and how things work, I think just puts him ahead and that program ahead of so many others that are just, kind of just throwing things on the wall and seeing what sticks. They know their process, and it's just a matter of tweaking it, polishing it up, maybe trying to do a thing or here. But that's what consistency does for a program, right? It allows you to, maybe take those risks on a national thing, or, some of those other little things that are going on. But to me, it goes back to alignment from the top down, right? Like the administration at Susquehanna understands what football does for a small school like that. I mean, you're talking 2,200 kids in an area, like you said, that's kind of off the beaten path. So to get those kids on campus is a win in itself. And then the rest of it kind of just, goes back, and kudos to the staff that he put together, because that's what really makes it go, especially at a D3 level. Like I said, you can't be sending guys out to recruit while other guys are coaching. You just don't have the means to do that, but the self-awareness within the program of knowing what works for them and that foundation, like that's what's worked. You know what I mean? And that might not be what works at some other programs. You got to figure that out,
by the way, how good is this North Central College?
Unbelievable.
Like that. So it's interesting, because since you got D3 is like navigated like rotation of powerhouse programs, and
he's battling something too that a lot of other guys aren't battling, where, like you said, there's so many schools, the PSAC, then the the NJAC, like there's so many schools around him. How do we get those guys to not go there and come here, right? Like it's just you want to play for, if you're a true competitor, and like you said, if you're one of those higher level Division III guys, like you want to go to one of the better D3s, and that's the school that's been in the playoffs every year, consistently deep runs, all those kind of things. And I love the way he navigates the whole thing in terms of, obviously anybody that's not paying for that service within the transfer portal, like you need to go out and pay for that service to filter all those things through and understand, like, especially if you want to approach it based off of a need base in terms of positionally, or, like where the kid went to high school and all those kind of things, like that probably just puts them on a different pedestal, because they're already ahead of the game, right? Like they're not just looking at, oh, this guy's in the portal. It's more of, they know exactly what they're going after. So I think that's awesome.
It's very interesting. They're in the Final Four. The other teams are Mount Union, North Central College, which looks like they have 9 million transfers, like 15 transfers.
And how that makeup of the roster is, you know what I mean? Like you could probably look at that and be all right.
It's interesting, because almost all of North Central's kids, it must be a state school. No, almost all of them are almost every single one is from Illinois. So it must be a state school where
those kids can literally pay nothing.
Yeah, if they transfer back, they're not paying very much, right?
Correct.
Very interesting. I've been frozen with this weird face on for the last 5 minutes.
Well, you're in thought there, buddy. You look like you're thinking really hard.
Deep in thought. Very good podcast. We got tomorrow dawn, right? So
Coach Carpel.
Coach Carpel. Perfect. Look forward to that. It'll be great. All right. Till tomorrow.